Welcome, everybody. I'd like to convene on the Reading Select Board. Today is December 8th. It is 7 p.m. And we are, Chris Haley and Karen Herrick are live, and Ann Landry, Select Board member and Vice Chair, is joining us remotely. And our agenda tonight will focus on FY23 budgets, specifically finance, administrative services, public safety, and facilities. So welcome, thanks for joining us. And so Bob, why don't you get us started?
Thank you, Karen. I just want to introduce the department heads that will be speaking tonight. There'll be 6 out of 9. We'll start with Town Accountant Sharon Engstrom, followed by Administrative Services Director Matt Cornelis. And then we'll jump into Public Safety with Fire Chief Greg Burns, Police Chief David Clark, Health Director Ade Solarin, and I want to come back and introduce him to you in a sec.
Oh, wonderful.
And lastly, Facilities Director Joe Huggins. So I know the town has, put out information about Ade. I know some of you have spoken to him or met him, but just to be more formal, certainly Ade has been a great addition. He came most recently from Danvers as the Health Director and had previously been in Somerville, Oak Bluffs, Lynn, and Watertown. And I think the single most important thing that I can say about Ade is, as soon as he opened his mouth in an interview, he felt like one of the family. It's just one of those things that's really hard to explain.
Okay.
He just fit right in. And, an interview can be a stressful thing, but he immediately showed us a sense of perspective and a sense of humor, which is, very important in these times. So I know the board has already joined me in welcoming Ade, and you'll hear from him shortly. But if we can start with Sharon, and for any of the department heads presenting, I have all your material. I'm happy to do the presentation. If there's some trouble on your end, just let me know. Sharon?
Thanks, Bob. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just start off with a quick overview that I typically do for anyone who's not familiar of the org chapter by finance and kind of what the different divisions do, what the volume looks like, and then I'll jump into the budget. So this is the org chart for the finance department. There are 3 separate divisions: general finance, which is treasury and collections, accounting and assessing. And those are all the positions that make up those separate divisions. There's 12.87, I believe, FTEs that make up finance, and they're all non-union positions. And these are the breakout of the FTEs: 6.37 in general finance, 2.5 in assessing, and that does not include our regional assessor because he is not an employee of the town. He's Wakefield's employee, so he shows up on our expense line instead of our salaries. And then 4 FTEs in accounting. These are the general responsibilities for general finance. The first 4 relate to the treasury functions. So bi-weekly, we do payroll for about 1,200 to 1,300 employees. Then there's cash management and cash reconciliation, state and federal reporting, and debt issuance under the treasury function. Under the collecting function, we do the quarterly property tax bills for over 9,000 properties and the related utility billing for those same properties. We manage all the tax title in the collections department and payment processing of about 125,000 payments per year. Some payments do come in at the departmental level, but we still have to review them in the collector's office and post them. So in one way or another, all 125,000 payments make their way to the collector's office, the majority of which are processed completely in the collector's office, but some do come from the departmental level.
Great. Can I ask you a quick question, Sharon?
Sure.
Thank you. So approximately 1,300 employees sounds like a very large number. Does that include RMLD, all of our teachers and school staff, and how do we get to that number?
It's all of the whole town, basically. The school, RMLD, even retirement. They have 2 employees. We pay them on our payroll.
Okay.
And so it's all, and even seasonal staff. So that probably includes times when we have seasonal staff as well. So that's just an estimated number. It can range from 1,000 to 1,300 depending on what time of year it is.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. So under assessing, The assessing department values all of our real and personal property. They do the field review, data collection, data entry of all the property information. And they do all the statutory and local property exemptions, as well as all the billing for motor vehicle excise tax. And last year there was about 24,000 bills issued. They also do all of the motor vehicle and property tax abatements, and they maintain all the property tax records. They also do the tax classification presentation to the select board and the general public, and they administer our senior tax relief program that's in its 5th year. And I believe I had numbers. I think you said there was like 246 applicants, and there was maybe like 6 that didn't qualify. So the program has been growing each year. Oops. The accounting department does all of the invoice processing on a weekly basis, and about 28,000 bills were processed last year. And then we do all the monthly budget reporting to the department heads, budget oversight and support, municipal and security settings to make sure that people can only have access to what they're allowed to have access to based on what department they work in and what position they hold. We do the tax rate recap, which is setting the tax rate, and I work with the assessor to do that. Free cash calculation and certification. The Schedule A reporting, which is also a DOR report, and if we don't file it, we don't get our state aid, so it's very important. Financial analysis and reporting, and compilation of all audit requests for Melanson. So this is our finance budget summary on a high level. The finance department budget is going up 3.9% overall, 3.1% in accounting, 5.2% in assessing, and 3.9% in general finance. So we have a couple added asks in the assessing area for fiscal 23, and I'll get into that when we get to the slide. So this is the salary slide for finance. Overall salaries are going up 4.2%. Accounting 3.2%, assessing 3.5%, and general finance at 4.9%. So general finance is a little higher than the rest. We were told by Bob that the recommended non-union increase would be a 2% step plus a 1.75% COLA. So general finance obviously sits a little higher, and it's because I'm looking to or proposing to add 5 more hours to one of the clerks working in the collector's office. There's definitely the volume there to support bringing that to full-time at 37.5. It's currently working 32.5. We see a lot of volume in the collector's office, but also I find having that person at 32.5 causes problems here and there with vacation time coverage and coverage for the window on the late nights.
Karen, can I call finance?
And then the expense budget.
Hang on, Sharon, for 1 second.
Yep.
Sorry, Sharon, this is Ed Ross. I'm just going to call the finance committee to order.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that, Sharon.
You all set?
I'm
Yep.
all set. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No problem. So the finance expense budget is going up 2.2%. I made some reductions in accounting and general finance to allow for some of the changes that the assessor has requested. In the accounting area, it's a small change. We reduced the budget by $450, mostly in the professional development area. In assessing, what is needed there is $2,500 for an update to the bridge that we use for the CAMA to Munis. So CAMA is the software that they use for property tax valuation. He wants to make some improvements to include the tax exemption portion so that he can enter that into the CAMA software and be able to upload it into Munis rather than have to enter it into both. So that will cost us $2,500, so we added that in. He also let me know that DOR had increased some requirements related to utility appraisals, and that was going to cost us more money through our third party that we use for personal property inspections. And so there's another $2,500 added on that line that we hadn't had prior. So overall assessing goes up 6.4%. In general finance, we did do some decreases in general finance, and we were able to do that because our actuals had come in a little under budget on several line items. Printing forms, we took $500 away from that budget. another $500 away from the tax title line. And I was able to do that just based on 3-year actuals, seeing that we were under budget over the last 3 years. So I felt fairly comfortable doing that. And then I think about a $450 deduction to our property personal development, professional development. Andrew did get certified this year through the Mass Treasurers and Collectors Association, and he had been going to training every year to accomplish that. He will not be attending in fiscal 23 because he has other obligations, and so that gave me the leeway to take a little budget away for 1 year only to help us afford what we were looking for in the assessing department. And overall, the 2.2% is what the expenses are going up. Other than that, there's nothing very noteworthy unless people have any questions.
I don't have any questions. That seems easy to understand. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks.
You ready to move on to the next department? Okay. Yeah.
I'm good on my end. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay, I'm just getting set up here. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Great. So this is the FY22 Administrative Services Budget Presentation. I'm Matt Cornelis. So I start every year by bringing up the org chart. People have seen this chart before. Administrative services divided into 5 separate departments, actually divisions. You can see the divisions in red: Town Clerk's Office, Human Resources, Office of the Town Manager, Operations and Technology. The positions are noted in blue under there, and the boards are in green and in purple. This chart hasn't changed since last year, although I am proposing a few new positions that I'll get to in the presentation, so this may change a little for next year. So administrative services supports all town departments and boards. We offer communication support, technology services, HR, hiring, training, testing, and support. Procurement is under administrative services, document management, insurance, safety claims, and legal services, and there's a few more other areas, minor areas that I won't really get into. We remain at 17.5 FTE this year. As I said, I'll be requesting maybe some increases there, but as we stand now, it's the same as last year, 17.5. I'm going to go through each one of the divisions and talk a little bit about the budget impact and any highlights there if there is really no budget impact. So we start with the town manager's office. That includes obviously the select board, finance committee, and legal services. I'm calling this a level services budget. There'll be a small increase in legal services based on current trends. I monitor the legal bills, as does Bob, and I believe the select board gets copies as well. They seem to be edging up a little bit, so we're going to add a little bit of money into the legal services lines, but not too much. And there's also a projected increase of 15% in property and casualty insurance, again based on current trends. Also claims, we did have that major claim this year regarding the flooding at Town Hall that may have something to do with that as well. With the town manager's office. Town clerk and elections. This includes elections, voter registration, census, town meeting, licenses, document storage. The impact here, and it's a significant one, we actually have 3 elections in FY23. So in the current fiscal year, we only had 1 election. So we're tripling that number. That means tripling the expenses. That means tripling the salary of the election workers. So that number is going up this year. Quite a bit. Really nothing we can do about it. We have to hold elections, and there's a cost to it. Another area, though, is we're requesting a part-time clerk for the town clerk's office, for Laura's office. And this clerk will specifically aid with public record request processing. And I looked at the numbers actually today, and since the law changed in 2017, We've almost doubled the number of public records requests coming in to the office. Laura handles most of them, either personally or with her office. I help, and there's a few other divisions that help. But with that many records coming in, record requests coming in, we thought it would be best to add a part-time position to help with that. A lot of other cities and towns have done that. Actually, there's a lot of full-time positions now that handle specifically public records requests. So for a half-time position, I'm estimating about $23,000 for that position. The next area is operations. That's procurement, communications, risk management, constituent services, shared staff, postage, equipment, and whatnot. This is a level services budget. There's nothing really to talk about budget-wise here. However, under this department, we're currently working on the redesigned town website. Design and mitigation are ongoing. We hope to launch the new website by the end of the first quarter of 2022. We have a team that has been working on this. We meet at least 2 times a week. Jane Wellman has done a great job leading this team and working with the vendor. I've talked about this in prior budget meetings and with select board members individually and with members of the public. People want to see a redesigned and refreshed website. Bob heard that too, and we were able to free up the money during this year to get that done, so it's not even a budget item going forward. But I wanted to mention that, and that's something we should all look forward to. I've seen some of the drafts of the designs, and it's going to be really something special, and we'll be rolling more of that out as the year progresses. So that's big news in the operations department. I bring this slide every year. This is the 360 view of municipal communication. I often hear that the town needs to do a better job with communication, and it's something we're always trying to improve on. But these are the ways we actually do communicate with the public, with boards, with everybody out there. And I can highlight that maybe the first 4 sections here. Code Red, we're now up to 21,000 users, contacts for Reading. That's the reverse 911 system that we use. People that get phone calls if there's an emergency or a road closing. That's really come a long way. See Quick Fix is an app that people can use if they see something in the street, like a pothole that needs to be fixed. We always encourage people to use See Quick Fix. We're up to 1,000 users there, and we'd like to get more. Social media is a huge way we connect with the public at large. Facebook continues to increase every year. Also, Twitter followers are also up significantly. I know that the police department has an Instagram page that they use quite a bit, and we also have a LinkedIn page that's used primarily by HR, so we post our positions on LinkedIn now. So we have quite a social media following in Reading. It's something that I think I mentioned this before. When I got here, there was no social media. There was no Facebook run by the town, no Twitter. It is something we as a department were able to build and enhance and grow. So it's something that I'm proud of, especially in this day and age. And as I mentioned before, the website is now something. When I first came, we actually did redesign the website. That was over 5 years ago now, and we think every 5 years it deserves a refresh, a redesign, and so we're right in the middle of that right now. And then some of the other areas, some of the more old-fashioned ways we communicate, we still use those ways quite a bit, but it seems like the column, the first 4 in this column is the way we generally communicate with the public these days. Human Resources, that department is responsible for hiring, training, testing, serving all departments, including the school department, light department, and retirees. That's something I always like to highlight for benefits, for the benefits part of the job. It's not just the town departments, it's the entire school department, teachers, whatnot, the entire light department, and all of our retirees all rely on us for benefits in this one small division within town hall. So it's quite a heavy load. The fiscal impact here is that in talking to Sean Donahue, the HR director, who I believe is on the call today, we could really use an assistant HR director to help with hiring, workload, general oversight, somebody that would become the recruitment director, recruitment manager, and just deal with a lot of the compliance issues, especially during COVID. That job has expanded quite a bit. We've also had, increase in just general inquiries to HR, complaints, investigations. So that's a position that we feel is really needed. I understand it's a large position, but I figured at level one, we would ask for it and highlight the need. So $80,000 is what we're estimating we could get somebody for around that salary. So that's a new position, again, with the clerk's position. Those are the two new positions that I'm requesting in the budget. We've also added more on the expense side, this might actually be in the salary side too, $50,000 to fund the results of the upcoming pay and class study. So the pay and class study is about to get underway. We're working with Allison Jenkins, who's the procurement officer for the town, to secure a vendor to do the pay and class study. And once that is done, we envision that there's going to be a cost to that if they recommend that certain salaries would have to increase. So we're already budgeting for that.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So, this HR position, so the 80K is just salary, it doesn't include benefits and things,
Yes, yeah. So that's just the salary portion of it. Obviously, there'd be a cost of benefits and whatnot, but that benefits, those come under a different, section of the budget. It's
Okay.
not right in the salary line. So I'm just highlighting the salary line.
Okay, thank you. So, and just to be clear, so, we heard earlier we could have between 1,000 and 1,300 employees. So the schools do some of their own hiring, RMLD does their own hiring. So Sean is responsible for approximately how many of those hires, or touch points with how many of those employees?
Yeah,
Right.
so I think, Sean, are you on?
Yeah,
I am.
thanks.
Sean can answer that question.
Thanks.
Hi. So we approximately have upwards of 300 employees that we directly hire in some capacity, whether it be full-time, part-time, seasonal. Our HR department about 5 years ago really became hands-on regarding attending interviews. In a lot of other towns, the department heads sort of run their own interviews, and it opens up a lot of liability there for various questions that can be asked or disclosures during interviews. So we try to be very hands-on. I can't speak for all the departments, but I think that we try to do that as quickly as we can when a vacancy occurs, so that we don't hinder operations in other departments. But to answer your original question, approximately around greater than 300.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so moving on from human resources, we get to what I believe is the last department, technology, responsible for centralized computers, telecommunications, network management, audiovisual software, computer support, GIS mapping. And I have to add that actually the last 2 years, since we've been going through COVID, this department has been indispensable in terms of getting us up and running with Zoom, getting everybody the equipment they need if they're working at home, getting all the equipment that you see right now in the select board room, and making that essentially a Zoom room, and the conference room a Zoom room, several other conference rooms around the town. We really owe a debt of gratitude to the technology staff and Kevin Ferrilla, who's the leader of that staff. In talking to him, the one ad that he has, and it's significant, we've added $50,000 to fund the purchase of Office 365 licenses for all town employees. Currently, we had purchased, I believe, about 20 in the past. So some employees do have them, and we're trying that out. And according to Kevin, it's been successful, and we would like to move the entire town, our town staff, onto 365. So that's what the cost he estimates is, $50,000. And he's also requesting another $15,000 for maintenance of the fiber network for town and schools. And that's important because that's an important way that we communicate throughout town. So the fiber network maintenance is something we have to keep up with.
Matt, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, and I'm sorry, I can't see you. I see your great slide, and we can't see any of you, so it's kind of weird. But,
Wow.
so it's such as it is. So,
My video.
fiber maintenance, that sounds like infrastructure. are you, so we'll be talking about our ARPA funding in the new year. I wonder if this might be something that might be put forward from staff as a possibility.
To run under ARPA?
Yeah, because it's infrastructure and broadband, which was specifically
Yeah.
outlined, and it's pretty small, but you know, I don't know how we're gonna like track this kind of stuff or these opportunities.
Right, I mean, that's something I could look at. Sharon, I know has been tracking ARPA pretty closely as well. If it's something that's a fit, sure, you know, we could pay for it through ARPA. You know, I'd have to look at that a little more closely, but regardless, it's something that, that Kevin says is a priority and we really need to do, so.
You know, I completely agree. Ed, did you wanna comment?
Yeah, no, I guess it's I had a follow-up question I could ask in a bit, but, I guess the question is more for, kind of Matt and everybody else, as they kind of go through their budget pieces, is there a loop back, almost to your question, Karen, back to Sharon, to say, okay, well, kind of what's in here, could any of this, because again, and not to put too much on Sharon's plate, but I think that, that's the right course, and I'm just curious if that's gonna be part of the process as before, to when we get, the full budget, final budget presentation. I don't know who can answer that.
I certainly think it would be helpful.
I definitely think the fiber network would be something that would qualify under ARPA. Obviously, nobody's assuming that the select board would approve it. So he's obviously putting all his requests out there, but it definitely could be something that we would come to you and ask for.
Okay. I guess exactly to Ed's point, like, my ears are kind of tuned for opportunities and we're gonna be learning more, so yeah, what is the feedback loop for tracking these things so that when the committee finally gets together, we can say, great, and this is how we're gonna get it encumbered and spent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, this is probably a good forum for, for us to be able to have some, and we can take note of it, but it's also, for staff as well. Can I ask my follow-up question?
No, yeah.
So Matt, just a quick question too, sorry, this is Ed Ross, from the Finance Committee. On one of your earlier slides, Matt, you had 17 and a half, FTEs. So is that pre these new additions or those post the new additions?
No, so we currently, as the budget stands now, have 17 and a half. So we're asking for one more full position, one more half-time position.
So post will be 19. Sorry, I talked over you. So post will be 19?
So, Ed said, so 19 would be the goal if the budget's approved, okay.
Yep,
Thanks.
so 19 total, if the two positions that I'm asking for were funded.
And Matt, just out of curiosity, how does the 17 and a half look over the last year or two? Was that pretty standard through the last couple of years? I'm sorry, I don't have it.
Yeah, it's been pretty standard through the last few years. I think we've added, since I've been here at least, maybe a technology person, an HR person a few years ago, and I think maybe one more, maybe a half-time in the clerk's office before. But we haven't added a lot of positions. I think when I first started, we're probably about where we were, maybe a couple over, but so.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, so.
Oh, sorry, Chris has a question.
Yep, go ahead.
It's more of a comment, but I know from personal experience, the 50 grand to swap over to Office 365 is probably going to end up saving you money in the long run, because the amount of time and effort that, IT must be spending just supporting the older product from Microsoft. It is a night and day difference. We swapped everybody over, I don't know, close to 5 years ago now, and it is night and day. Just administering, it takes minutes instead of, a half hour, and then set up your phone and go through all these rigmaroles. It's going to be like, it should almost be done next year instead of 23, but it is what it is. And then the maintenance thing as well, I don't know if you guys have ever looked into wireless point-to-point networks to just, I'm not sure what the speed of the fiber is that you have, but 15 grand for maintenance alone, you could almost redo the entire network wirelessly for that. So I don't know if that's something you have ever explored.
I haven't personally, but it's something I will talk to technology about and see. I know that we've had fiber for quite a while, and it definitely needs maintenance, but if point-to-point is an option, that's definitely something we could look at.
Alrighty, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, should I go with my questions?
Yeah,
now
go for it.
that?
I'm sorry, we can't see anyone, so we're all gonna have to just chime in. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Matt, I was wondering with respect to the increase in public records requests, and I know some of that is driven by changes to the statute that, enable or facilitate additional requests. But are we seeing the requests come primarily from companies that are doing different kinds of searches? Has there been a significant uptick in requests from residents? Do we know what's kind of the breakdown of what's driving those requests?
Yeah, I think, and Laura may be on too, and she could correct me. We've had a lot of commercial requests come in. I've seen definitely an increase there, and I think on the resident side as well. But I've noticed a lot of commercial requests for public records. They're utilizing the new law, and they get a bargain, that's for sure. But without looking at any numbers, that's my guess.
And I can jump in there. It's about half and half, about half commercial, about half residents.
Okay. And how does that compare to previous years?
So since the new law went into effect in 2017, it's been about that. It first started off being a lot of commercial.
Yeah.
And then, but it's now stabilized to where it's about half and half each way as the year has gone on.
Okay. On a separate note, I was excited to hear about the new website design. Also, just wanted to offer my personal thanks to IT for all they've done for the board and other boards, commissions, and committees to enable us to continue the work of nighttime government through the pandemic. And I had one other question, Matt, which is, you said that the proposed increase to the legal budget is slight. Do you know what that percentage looks like? And maybe we'll be coming to that.
Yeah, I think what I did, let me just go to that section of my paperwork here. So for legal counsel for town council, I think I put in an increase of $10,000 for that.
Okay.
So, like I said, a slight increase, and I think we looked. There's also a line item law, other legal services, and we increased that line too, just because we didn't know what exactly we were facing in some certain legal circumstances. So I'd say probably $20,000 total, but maybe a little less.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Okay, and so I was wrapping up with the technology, and I think I just have a wrap-up slide, and there it is, and then we can get to more questions. But we wanted to add everything together for you based on what I just told you for all the divisions. So the number for salaries is about $1.7 million. Expenses about $2 million for administrative services. Capital about $100,000, and capital is just some computer equipment that we have scheduled, nothing big there. And so the total budget request for this year is about $3.9 million. Now, that's actually an 11.29% increase from the prior year, but I'd also again highlight the fact that elections have tripled, so all of those expenses and salaries have tripled, and also the increase in the insurance. So those drivers sometimes we don't have much control over. The rest we do, and so there's still going to be an increase in my budget, but I think I've explained the need, and I'm happy to answer further questions if you have them.
I do have a couple questions. Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I do, but
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. It's fine.
Matt, again, Ed Ross again from the Finance Committee. Just getting on the technology budget, and I'm just curious, within that technology budget, was there any, kind of, I don't know, lingering or new expense as it relates to, and again, I'll echo Ann's thank you to technology for all the Zoom. And my question's about Zoom as it relates. Is there any kind of ongoing, kind of either licensing or fees associated with that, specifically for this use, but also as it relates to town meeting as well? I don't know, if that's something that we're earmarking, and I know this is kind of goes out a year, but just kind of curious because we may or may not need it, and so just kind of curious if it's actually embedded into the budget or not.
Yeah, I believe we buy licenses for Zoom, and it's something that, we see we need in at least the near future, and maybe beyond. Town meeting was done by it was Zoom webinar, which is a little bit more expensive as a purchase. And I think we'll probably look at that as town meeting comes up as to what we're going to do with the next town meeting. But Zoom itself, we pay for Zoom licenses for every department. And I see that something, ongoing, even post-pandemic, people are used to using it. It's actually a convenience. So those licenses, I think we're going to be carrying forward to the next budget.
Great, thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Matt, it's Mark. So I got a couple of questions for you. Doesn't Office 365 come with Teams, which would mean you wouldn't need Zoom then?
Well, I mean, it comes with Teams, but some people aren't as comfortable using Teams. They'd have to be trained on Teams. Most people use Zoom and are familiar with Zoom. So, but you're right, Teams is part of it, and we could, if we do make that purchase, we could do some training to get people up and running with Teams. I've used it a few times. It's a good program. So that's a good point you raise.
Yeah, and another question on the legal and some of these other outside services. Have they given you any idea on rate increases?
No, well, with legal services, they essentially bill us by the hour. So it's not a flat fee generally. So it's just how much we use them. And we've been using, we've looked at the legal bills, and we've been using, for whatever reason, law a little bit more. So, but it's not sort of a flat fee that we pay them. They bill us hourly at a pretty good, I think it's probably less than market rate that they give us because of our ongoing relationship.
Yeah, have they indicated if their hourly rate is going to increase?
They haven't indicated that to me. I don't know. Bob deals with town council a little bit more than I do on financial issues. They haven't said that their rate's going up. It's just usage as far as I know. So.
Yeah, they've only had one increase since we hired them over the last 6-7 years. So it's not something that's frequent, and it's usually something they prepare us for well in advance, and we haven't heard anything.
All right, thanks.
And this is Mary Ann. I have my hand up, but I don't know if someone was ahead of me or whether we're just talking.
We're just having a hard
We're
time
mostly
recognizing
talking
people.
Because the chair can't see us actually, because all they can see in the room is the screen.
Okay.
The presentation.
So if I could just ask a question going back on, I was a little late getting in on this meeting, my apologies, with the new assistant HR director for 80K.
Yeah.
So does that necessarily have to be a full-time position? Because I guess that just seems like one of the bigger ads, and I don't know what the level of hiring is that our town is actively doing. I was looking at the job posting page, and we're hiring a lot of laborers, but usually there's not too much there. Can you just go over again the need why that has to be a full-time position?
Yeah, and I think we actually have been posting quite a few jobs recently, given the market where we're at. But the request comes because we've seen an increase in the work. We wanted somebody to really focus on recruitment as well, to make sure we have the most qualified candidates, and just to help with the day-to-day oversight with HR, improved advertising. Also, training is a big part of HR these days, and we wanted somebody to help with that. So, like I said, I understand it's a big number, but it's a need. I've seen it myself, and Sean specifically has seen it in his office. And I think it would be hard to hire somebody part-time for that type of a position. We see that as more of a supervisor role in HR, and not something that we would focus on a part-time person for.
I guess another reason I'm just asking is because I'm looking like at the Reading Public Schools website, and they're, much more personnel heavy, and they have one HR director, and I know at the time they were sharing, I think, an assistant or something with the town, and I didn't know if there was any way that this position would, if we're still always keeping the schools in town separate, or whether this could be something that would help the schools, because the schools are just more personnel heavy, and I always feel like they're doing a lot more recruiting. I'm not trying to mix things up, but I mean, they're getting by with just an HR director, and now the town side, which is far fewer personnel, wants two roles. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Right. And I think I mentioned we do benefits for the school department, and also
Okay, so
for
that's
the light department and retirees as well. So there is, it's a little bit broader than what you're describing. And we did try a few years ago. Actually, Sean could speak to this because he was the person at the time. Trying to do more shared with the schools, and it worked for a while, but in the end, I think it just it made more sense to have two separate departments. But
If I can for a minute, Matt, do you mind if I?
No, go ahead, yeah.
All right. Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi.
Yes, I was the HR generalist that was funded in 2015.
Right, that's what I recall, yeah.
So I was split between the town and the schools. My duties, even though I was in one position and I sat in two different offices, were quite different. A lot of the duties at the school department are heavily focused on a lot of administrative high level. The HR department over there does not sit in on all of the interviews. They sit on some of the high level ones. There's a lot of paperwork that goes through that office. And recently they did add a full-time, when that position was no longer split and the town and the school sort of got their own HR generalist type position, that they did gain a full-time position over there. But the reason why on the town side, as Matt said, is that the benefits get pretty intense, and a lot of the day-to-day stuff really prevents me as the director from implementing more organization-wide initiatives that I really need to focus on. And there's been so much in the past year, not even just with COVID, but other laws that have come around in the past few years that we have to try to implement. So I would really like this position to be a second set of eyes for some of those day-to-day minutiae that can really bog things down, and really allow us to expand into, for recruitment. We need to start breaking out from just posting things on our website. We've certainly expanded our palette with reaching out to more websites and more organizations to help us for our positions. But I'd like to even get into going to college fairs and hiring events and maybe putting on things for the community to sort of rebrand our department. But I do understand and I do appreciate your questions, because from that it does look a little
Well, now that you've explained the benefits for both sides of town, it kind of, okay, now there's a lot. I'm not saying it wasn't meaty, but now I can totally see with, 1,000 people on the school side, or 800, however many it is, if you include all the less than FTEs plus the town side, it's a lot. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Okay. Yep, Ed.
Hey, Matt, hi, Ed again, on the Finance Committee. Just another kind of question. In your summary slide, you had the bottom line on the percentage. There it is. Is it possible, and obviously not to do it on the fly, but just as maybe as a follow-up, is it possible that you could break out that percentage increase and maybe attribute it to the new positions versus the elections versus the property, some of those other expenses? I think that might, because it's eye-opening to see 11 and a quarter or 11.3, on the page. But if there's certain things like the elections that are completely out of our control, I think that would be helpful as a reference point so that we, as you know, kind of folks are looking at it and digesting it, can kind of break it down for what it really is.
Yeah, that for sure. And if this budget makes it to FinCom, it'll be broken up in even further detail than that. But for the purposes of just, talking about it and making a first introduction, I sort of lumped it all together. But the elections too, we had talked about in the past, maybe making elections more of an accommodated cost where it doesn't fully sit in my budget, because my budget swings from year to year based on elections. And so you might see a real significant swing one year. Like last year, I actually had a decrease, and it was because there was a lot fewer elections. So I mean, it's in my budget and I have to deal with it, but, in the future, we may think of a different way of accounting for it.
No, I thought I recalled that, so I'm just, again, that might be, that question might be a little bit early, but I just wanted to kind of get it out there.
Sure, no, I appreciate it, and we can break things up in as much details as you like, so.
Thanks, Matt, I'll stop now.
Okay, well, I have a couple questions, Matt, this is Karen.
Yep.
Okay, question, so we had a GIS coordinator retirement. Is that person part of your full-time equivalents?
Yes, and we were lucky because we thought that would be a really difficult position to replace, because the person who retired had been here for several years and was one of the premier people in the field. But we got a great field of applicants, and we just hired somebody. He started a few weeks ago, so.
Oh, congratulations. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a new position, it's in the existing 17.5, so.
Yep, and actually I just saw it on your chart, sorry about that. So the other thing I wanted to bring your attention, so the Climate Advisory Committee has been speaking to the select board, and they're gonna come back with more information about the need for a sustainability director to help us manage grant programs. Specifically, this could include green communities, this can include MVP grant programs, and this person needs to be able to pull in department heads from various departments. So it was one proposal, will that it be at least initially reporting to the town manager to see how that works. So I see that this is your area, and what I'm wondering about is how we get a placeholder in there where we're still waiting for some more information and some data on that.
I think, I know I've only had a few conversations about this, but I thought we were talking about the proper place for this being in the public services budget.
Oh, okay.
But Bob, I'm going to maybe defer to Bob.
Public services.
I think I talked to Bob and Jean about it, but is that correct, Bob, or?
I guess, let me step back just for everyone in the audience. The department heads tonight and then next Tuesday are giving their own sort of budget requests, if you will. At the end, for someone like Ed, he'll be thrilled. I'll sort of wrap it up with a lot of financial discussion and sort of big picture. And one of the things I'll say to the board in what the board and I will work on for the next month is, if the department heads have not addressed something that's a need in the community or a request in the community, I'll ask them how they feel about adding other things. So I don't know if this position has been addressed by Jean. She's going to talk to you next week. But regardless of what the department heads are doing, this is just the very first step in a pretty long process. We discussed different options about how to do that, and again, we'll leave that discussion for next week and in January.
Okay, just want to make sure we get it out there early and often, and good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, then I can wrap it up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, now we can see you, Matt, at the end. How are you?
So when I stop to share,
Yeah.
I don't know, it has to do with the screen share, I guess, so.
All right, well, maybe who else is presenting tonight? We saw Sharon, we did get to see you. Whoever's next, maybe they should say hello first and then go into slide world. It's nice to see you, Matt.
Okay, nice to see you too, both of you, thank you.
All right, thanks. I know, you guys aren't on camera, it doesn't even count, you're not even here.
Fantastic, that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
I could run down, but I can't see anyone else in the room. I hear Ed's voice. Who else is in the room, just for the record?
Hi, Jackie McCarthy, Finance Committee.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Just
Yeah,
Chris,
me, Bob.
Chris and Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all. All right, so is Reading Fire Department, looks like they're next.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Greg. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. And before I started, I wanted to welcome Ade Salaries to Public Safety. We're glad to have you with us. So, welcome.
We have not seen, there you are. Oh, nice to meet you. I'd like to meet you in person, but welcome for the community. We're really excited to have you on board. It's been a long haul to try to find the right person for this position, so thank you.
We're really so delighted you're here. Welcome.
I'm glad to have you in Public Safety. So it's a nice mix. All right, Buck, do you want to put up my presentation?
Really? Everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so the Reading Fire Department, we have 4 major responsibilities: fire suppression, fire prevention, emergency medical services, and emergency management. And it's also our responsibility to coordinate and apply for all reimbursements for state and federal disaster declarations. This year was a little bit different in that Sharon Engstrom did a tremendous amount of work on the CARES funding and also ARPA, but I can tell you I was very happy to be working with Sharon on that because she did so much work. I don't think I could have done it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. The fire department has 53 equivalent full-time employees. We're requesting the same amount as prior fiscal year. So there aren't any changes in the amount of people or our structure requested this year.
Okay.
And the next slide shows our structure. And so we have 53 equivalent full-time employees. Of these, 48 are assigned to one of our 4 work groups. And each group consists of 12 personnel, 2 officers, and 10 firefighters. And their primary focus is on delivery of emergency services and inspections and training and just a whole host of other responsibilities. The administrative functions are performed by the fire chief, assistant fire chief, fire prevention officer, and department administrative assistant. And we also have a half-time equivalent position that's used to maintain the municipal fire alarm system. So each day, the on-duty shift staff, 2 engines, a ladder truck, and an ambulance. And each group is supervised by a captain, who's a shift commander. Captains are responsible to respond to emergencies, deliver services, training, scheduling, equipment maintenance, and routine fire prevention duties. Lieutenants are responsible for supervision of the West Side Fire Station and the firefighters who are assigned there. They're also responsible to respond to emergencies, deliver services, training, equipment, maintenance, and routine fire prevention duties. So to ensure each piece of fire apparatus has the proper amount of personnel to operate, we have 10 personnel on duty per shift as a minimum. And we also count our fire prevention officer as part of that shift also. So you can see by our structure, we're very heavily focused on emergency response, and we're very lean on the other administrative functions and training and other things, other functions of the department. Salaries, we're requesting this year, we're requesting just over $5.6 million. It represents an increase of 3.3%. Our expenses are almost level funded, just under a 1% requested increase to bring the total request to 5.8 million at a 3.25% increase. Our expenses are up a little bit due to the need to outfit 3 new firefighters with protective clothing. And we also have a increase in dues that we pay to Metro Fire. Metro Fire is our mutual aid organization. It's a collection of fire departments, 35 fire departments that bring to Boston. And each city and town that's part of that mutual aid unit pays, right now it's $2,500, it's going to go up to $5,000 per year for the administrative functions of keeping it up and going. There's radio costs and other costs to keep that organization up and running. We can switch, yep. So our salary budget highlights on the non-union side, the increases are per the pay and classification plan, and we have 2 employees that are going to receive a step increase. Unfortunately, our assistant fire chief is going to be retiring this after the first year, so we have to replace him. Union salary highlights, we have 3 captains that are receiving a step increase, 2 lieutenants that are receiving a step increase, and 20 firefighters will receive a step increase. We have 3 new firefighters. One of them is going to start on next Monday, and then he'll be off the academy on following week. And then just after towards the end of January, we have 2 other firefighters that are going to be starting with us. For the last several years, we've been going through a significant turnover with retirement, so we've been hiring a lot of new people. We've been very fortunate in the quality of the people we're getting, but the training process is a long process. And there's delays in getting people into the fire academy because the turnover we're experiencing, other departments are experiencing the same thing. So this fiscal year, our assistant chief is going to retire, a lieutenant will retire, and a firefighter will retire. So we're going to see some new promotions this year and some additional hires.
Greg, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
This is Karen. I was just wondering how many of your personnel are non-union and union?
So 49 people, 49 positions in union, and just the assistant, myself and the assistant chief are non-union.
Okay, thank you.
So I kind of mentioned this in the last slide. Our expense budget request is up 0.7% over fiscal year 22 due to the need to outfit 3 new firefighters in the Metro Fire Team. Just some of the grants that we have currently in place and that we've applied for. We received a grant almost 3 years ago now, $604,000. To pay the cost of 4 new firefighters. The next time I do a reimbursement, exhaust those funds. So right at the end of that. That's been a very good program for us. It paid the firefighters' salary at 75% for the first 2 years, and then 35% for the last year, and also paid their benefits as well. That's very important for benefits. This year we received a safe budget to provide a fire safety message to children in kindergarten through 2nd grade. And you might have seen our fire safety house that we house at the Metro Fire. That's one of the benefits we receive from being in Metro Fire. And you might have seen the fancy lettering on that. There's a local resident did for us at this house. And we also received a senior state grant for $2,680, and that's to deliver a fire safety message to our elderly population. This week I filed for a grant for just over $18,000 to make repairs to our radio system. Some infrastructure that's out in the street is deteriorating. So fortunately, that fits in very well with what the grant allows us to spend on. So I can address a number of deficiencies with that grant.
Greg, this is Karen. Okay, I just wanna commend you. That's my favorite slide, and not that the other slides weren't awesome, but that's amazing, and congratulations. And I was just wondering whether that wonderful large grant that also can be applied to salaries and benefits, are there any opportunities for us to get more of that in the future? Is that a one-off? That's significant.
Some departments do receive it in consecutive years. Most of the time, you're not successful with right after it runs out. It almost has to be like a time period.
Okay.
Some of the larger urban departments have been successful in getting it year after year. But it's not out of the question. And it is something we will definitely seek to apply again.
That's really awesome. Thank you.
But
Thank you.
assuming, Chief, your prediction is right, and we're not successful, on the heels of this grant, that will mean that our operating budget will have to kind of absorb those those no longer new, but those 3 positions.
Yeah, Bob and Sharon did some financing with to have the benefits of the grant be reflected in the department's budget. And perhaps Bob could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and the cost to the fire department, that's a full budget we've seen all along. And the funds that have come in from grants, I consider them as a revenue. I know Sharon doesn't, but it's just an offset. But the budget reflects the full costs. And then when we have actuals, that's a grant that has to be applied right to the lines themselves. So the actuals have been less. So in a sense, the grants have either funded overtime or gone to free cash. But once they go away, the budget doesn't have to change. It's built the way it's staffed.
Okay.
That's a great question. Thank you for that answer, Bob.
Do we have another question from Mary Ann Fonda?
Sorry, that was left over. Let me take it down, sorry.
That's all right. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So this shows our total emergency responses for calendar years 2014 through 2020 and partial 2021 data in the lighter bar. You can see our 2020 data because of COVID. We saw a slight dip for some of our response, and what we're seeing now is our call volume coming back to the 2019 level.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know, a lot. During the height of COVID, nobody was interested in. Not a lot of people were interested in going to the hospital.
Right. Oh.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely.
We are definitely seeing the increase, particularly within the last few weeks, we've seen an increase in call volume. This slide I love to show. This is a picture of the town of Reading's ambulances. Every truck in there is an ambulance. Obviously, there's fire trucks in there, but they're all registered in the state of Massachusetts as ambulances. So the fire trucks are registered as Class 5 ambulance, and that allows us to carry a full complement of ELS equipment and medication on all our trucks. And that's really important to us when our ambulance is out. And so as we see our ambulance calls increasing, that means it's out of town. We rely on other towns to come in and transport our patients. But if somebody is really critical, we treat them right in their home. And so these trucks carry that equipment to treat them right in their home. And it's something that is not being provided by any of the surrounding departments. And a little bit more in the next slide, I'll show you. So this is two compartments in our new pump. All our fire engines are set up the same. So on the slide on your left, this houses our advanced life support equipment. The black box you see up at the top left, it's a locked compartment. That carries our medication and advanced life support first in bag. And that's locked, but it's also temperature controlled. It has a refrigeration heating unit to keep the medications at the proper temperature. And then the other compartments carry other medication and other equipment. You want to jump to the next slide, Bob? So here's all our EMS equipment that we carry on every fire truck. So this is one fire truck load of EMS equipment. This is very unusual in the state. Most fire departments carry an AED, an automatic external defibrillator, a first-in bag, maybe an oxygen bag, and a small suction unit. So we're carrying, on the far left, you can see the box of medication. You see a wide variety of medications in there. The ALS first-in bag, and a 12-lead defibrillator monitor. So the town has made a significant investment in equipment for people for their EMS treatment in the town. And it's something that we wanted to provide. We have people who are trained. The worst thing we could do is not provide training people with equipment and tools they need. So the next slide is some of our types of calls that we're responding to. One of the things that we've seen this year on the increase in psychiatric emergencies, that moved from our fifth highest call to our third highest call. And there's a number of categories within that, and each one of those categories is up. So it's something that's concerning and something that we're following, and very happy that the town move forward on a mental health position, because I think that will help with the overall types of response for people that we see more frequently. The next slide, Bob.
Greg, can I ask a question? Oh, just make sure it's not coming. Can that data be sorted by general age ranges to kind of get an idea which groups need more, might just be more insightful to understand?
It probably can. This comes out of our EMS reporting database, and so I didn't pull this data out. Firefighter Joe LaFola, our EMS coordinator, pulled this out of our system for us.
Yep.
But I'm sure he could check that parameter off and get that data as well.
Okay, I just asked because of all the articles that have been about teens and mental health issues versus is it elders who are alone, who are, especially where you mentioned the uptick in psychiatric mental health type stuff. Thank you.
No, thank you. And this is
What are my drugs?
slide that shows the medications that our medics are able to administer. So
Okay.
it's quite a variety of medications that we carry.
Wow.
Next slide, Bob. Just a little bit of a slide on COVID calls over the last calendar year to see how they've gone up and down. And the November data, that's not complete. I think when we get to the end of December, we're gonna see that up higher. And our EMS liaison, another person that helps oversee our EMS system, he was telling anecdotally, they're responding to homes that are COVID positive, not just one person in the home. There's a couple of people in the home that are positive. And this is our ambulance revenue. Our data dropped a little bit. Our revenue dropped a little bit. I think that was due to the COVID and the reduction in ambulance responses, but I do expect it this year to be back up to the other level. Emergency management, that's another function of the department. I'll go over to the next slide. So we have put in, we've got 2 requests into the FEMA right now for reimbursement, and this has been a long process filing with FEMA because what they say is coverage changed significantly over the course. And what we saw from what they told us, what was eligible to what we applied for, and then when we went through a state review, and then when we went through a couple of federal reviews, they ended up pulling everything out that wasn't police and fire response to COVID patients. So all the work that was done at town hall, fire station, police station, on excellent shields and all of that stuff, we kind of got penalized because we did it early, so that all got cut out. And so what Sharon did is she moved, once it gets denied from FEMA, you can then move it to the care. So Sharon moved that over to there. But it's a difficult process. Because FEMA is dealing with every city and county in the entire nation. So they're overwhelmed with dealing with it. They just changed the rules. This is our FEMA reimbursement since 2001. And I had a number. Yeah, so this has been $1.7 million that we received back from FEMA since 2001 disaster reimbursement.
Wow. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How are these applied? Are these like the grant monies? They don't impact the budget, they just might be applied towards overtime or flow into free cash?
These ones and the ambulance revenues all go directly to revenues and have no impact whatsoever on the fire department budget.
Go directly.
So all those revenues are shared, if you will, by the town and the schools.
So the reason I'm asking is because, you know, I know it's important to budget conservatively, and then we've been surprised positively by our cash flow increasing, and so I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together and wondering if this is a little bit of a part of why we've been able to have higher free cash totals.
Yeah, things like the FEMA reimbursements would not be budgeted, so they would come in as an excess revenue that we didn't plan on.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay, thanks.
Can I comment on that as well? A lot of times when there's FEMA reimbursement, they don't come back to us until like the next year or the year after. So they don't tend to match up with the cost that we spent. And so it does end up being an infusion to free cash.
Thank you. Great. Okay.
That's all I had. Happy to answer any questions.
I asked all mine. Any other questions out there from Chris?
Not a question, another comment. I know that I met with you on the fire department open house, and I made the comment then, and I'll reiterate it, that if you can get hurt, injured, anything in anywhere, you're lucky to be in Reading at this point. Because any other city in town, it just seems as if you have no chance compared to what Reading has. So it's something to be proud of, and I'm very happy that I'm here and not elsewhere. So thank you.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you too.
Guys, I think I'm up next. I think, can everybody
Nice to
see me?
see you. We can see you.
Yep.
All right, and somewhere in Zoom land, I can't see her, is the Deputy Chief, Christine Amendola. I know she's out there somewhere, but I can't see her on my screen.
Welcome.
I see her, she's grinning at you.
Is she grinning at me? All right.
I'm Salary view, Chief.
Oh, we see her. Okay. Hello, Chief.
And I'd also like to welcome, I'm thrilled to have Ade join us from Public Health and coming under Public Safety, joining the Fire Chief and I. I've had the pleasure of meeting him several times, not only at the interview, but at the station. We did a walk through the police station, went over a bunch of stuff, and I'm already excited to hit the ground running and work with him. So I think this is a wonderful idea, and I just want to welcome him, and I'm really excited for the future with us.
Yep. So hope to meet him in person someday. But Zoom, that's a good first step.
So
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
I attempt to share my screen. I'm at work and not at home, so I do not have my kids to help me, so I'm going to give it a shot.
You're back up.
All right. Am I up there? Is it up there?
Yes.
I
Okay.
see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm just going to let everybody know now. There's been a slight changes to the presentation that you had in the packet. While I was preparing some of it and to get ready for the select board packet, we did have a dispatcher leave. So I have to adjust that, and then the stats were up to 12/1. I did run on my presentation tonight, my stats up through yesterday at midnight. So there'd be some slight changes. As far as financially, anything like that, none of that was changed. It's just an adaptation to, we lost a dispatcher to taking a different job. And I just updated the stats till midnight last night. So that's the only changes. So if you see some differences, that's why. But as far as money-wise and financial-wise, percentage-wise, none of that changed.
Okey-doke.
So the police department budget is a request for fiscal year 23 is just over $6 million. Again, I have three different budgets. I'll be presenting the police department budget, the dispatch budget, and the coalition budget. So this is strictly the police department we're talking about now. It's a 2.99% increase. This is our organizational chart. We're broken up into divisions. So there's myself and the deputy chief overseeing the department, and then we have a records office. The day shift division is for the patrol, is broken up to a evening lieutenant and a day lieutenant, and then we have the criminal division commander and support services. And from there, there's different groups. Most patrol officers fall under the day division and the night division, and then detectives, the school resource officers, and the coalition fall under the criminal division commander. And support services has the new the civil rights position was added in, traffic and safety, the armor, the crossing guards, administrative assistant, parking enforcement officer, and they do oversee the regional animal control, which I'll go over in a little bit. So for wages, we're asking for it's not asking for, it's an increase of 2.58%. We have a lot of new officers on the department, so a lot of this has to do with steps. We have budgeted for 46 sworn officers. We're currently staffed at 43. We have one officer graduating the academy at the end of December. We were fortunate to hire a second officer who's already academy trained. He's working for another police agency. He's leaving that agency to come to us. I'm holding off saying what town that's from or his name, just to make sure he's actually told his chief that. But we're finishing up his background check, and he'll be joining us at the end of December as well. And then we have a third officer starting the academy in January. We actually tried to hire this officer back in September. This officer's all good to go, but the next academy wasn't until January. Our academy is 6 months long, so we'll not see this person hire the academy until July, and they'll go through a 14-week field training program. So basically, they'll count as a body on the department around October of next year, but we are back up to staffing. We finally had an officer who's been away with the National Guard, got activated by the National Guard, has been gone for 2 years. Finally have him back. And then Bob texted me tonight, let me know that Maine and New Hampshire activated the National Guard, so I don't know if Mass is next. And I could be losing him again for an unknown amount of time, hopefully not. And we had an officer return from her maternity leave, and then we have another officer that's gonna be leaving on her maternity leave soon. But budget, actual personnel-wise, we're up to where we should be. We have 3 administrative assistants, one split between the police and fire departments. We recently regionalized the animal control officer position. We did that in the fall. So that's been outsourced, and with Wakefield and Danvers, Bob, I believe, the 2 towns that help out.
Just Wakefield for now, Dave.
Just Wakefield for now, okay. So regionalized the animal control officer position. Our animal control officer, who was also our parking enforcement officer, was out injured during, right before COVID hit, and we kind of held off replacing, and now we work on regionalization of the animal control officer. So currently, I'm budgeted for 22 hours for parking enforcement officer. My only request to increase is to put this position up to full-time. We are very fortunate when this is split as a one person doing animal control and parking enforcement, because if there was no parking, or so no animal calls, this person was able to fully dedicate themselves to parking enforcement. So we lucked out and got a full-time enforcement out of this. Since we regionalized, we don't have that anymore. And if anybody watched the select board meeting last night, the park committee made it clear that no matter what they do, whatever changes they're gonna make, it's not gonna work unless we have enforcement. And the key word I'm gonna quote them is enforcement is the key. So I'm asking for just to go from 22 hours up to full-time for the parking enforcement officer. That's we currently have the position posted for part-time, and we did get a bunch of applications in. The deputy chief did something with, she can explain it better than I can, Facebook job sharing, and I guess within the first couple hours, we got 6 applicants in. And I know Sean has posted other places. So we're looking to at least get a part-time person in there, and then we're supplementing with officers down there doing enforcement. We have 17 per diem school crossing guards. We now have 3 full-time positions for the coalition. I was prepared to ask for a mental health clinician in fiscal year 23. I was very grateful to hear that town meeting stepped up and offered it to us early. That position has been classified by the select board and is now posted, and hopefully be hiring after the first of the year for that position. I'm very excited to have that person come in and help us, the fire department, public health, whatever the town needs are. I am asking for a small increase in police training with part of the new police reform bill. Our annual in-service training, which has always been 32 hours, went up to 40 hours, which means I have to send officers now 5 days a week to the, for 5 days to the annual in-service training as opposed to 4. And all salary lines meet contractual agreements, cost of living raises, and everything up to date. Now, expenses looks high. I want to explain why this looks so high. With the regionalization of the animal control officer, the funding is being transferred from the salary side to the expense side.
Okay.
So basically, it's coming out of salary and being put over into expenses. Sharon, if I'm saying that wrong, or if I'm making an idiot out of myself, please let me know, but I'm pretty sure that I'm saying it right. So that's why the increase looks so high this one time. Other than that, we're asking for very small increases in professional technology and some dues and memberships that have risen, and a small increase as the cost of cruises has risen. Community outreach, we continue to be very active on a social media presence. We currently have 8,000 plus followers on Facebook. I added an Instagram about over a year and a half ago. We're up to 1,443 followers on there, and our Twitter account has 11,000 followers. We're very, very active posting programs, updates, and we've been slowly working on adding more people, lieutenants, and looking at the supervisors being able to post on the account too. If there's road closures, a scene going on, really get out there and let people know to avoid an area due to water main break, a bad accident, something, so people can get out there and know to avoid the area. COVID had significantly impacted our ability to perform some community outreach. We did adjust what we did. As you know, we were doing a lot of birthday parades in the past, different events. Luckily, we were able to get back in the schools, and this fall we were able to serve lunches to the elementary schools. We call it lunchroom takeover. We come in and help out, and we serve lunches. All the police officers come in and serve lunches to the elementary school kids. We hit every elementary school this fall. We were finally able to run a RAD, the Women's Self-Defense class, and we ran our Citizen Police Academy class back in the fall. We also participated in the Special Olympics torch run, and we just did the Santa parade. And I found out one thing, that there's actually somebody more popular than Santa Claus, and that is school resource officer Matt Batcher. I was in the Santa Claus, there's 2 cars in front of us. Officer Vatch was the cruiser in front of me, and I was the cruiser in the rear. And I heard all sorts of parents yelling, "Look, there's Santa, look, there's Santa." And all I heard the kids going, "Hey, look, there's Officer Matt, there's Officer Matt." They were more excited to see Officer Matt than Santa, so that's great. But it's just kind of funny hearing that. We also did a lot of raising awareness. Using our donations account, we were able to purchase a bunch of different patches. What we do is we have Velcro on our uniforms, we put Velcro on the back of the patches, and we wear for special months different patches to raise awareness for autism, domestic violence, breast cancer. The home-based program helped veterans. For those who don't know, General Hammond, who's actually from Reading, grew up in Reading, is a retired general from the military, runs the home-based program for Mass General. We do a melanoma awareness, and we did a special Reading Rocket one to acknowledge elderly seniors and the teachers and the school staff. And we all raised awareness, and if somebody wanted a patch, if they made a donation, like for the Reading Food Pantry, for example, for the Rocket patch, we gave them a patch. So it was a way to help also raise money for the Reading Food Pantry. And that's just some of the community outreach that we did. The patrol division, as I said, is separated into two, day shift and night shift. They're the most visible part of the police department. They're the ones you see out there in the cruisers driving around. They're the first ones to respond to calls, 911 calls, domestics, motor vehicle crashes, make traffic stops, deal with suspicious people, suspicious packages. They take the majority of all the reports when they first come in, and if they need to be followed up with, they'll go with the detectives division. But they're the face of the police department. They're the ones you see out there every day, out there going to calls. Also going to calls with the fire department. We respond to medicals. We help out the fire department with whatever need. It's just usually it's for traffic, depending on where they are. We usually have to make sure that the fire apparatus is safe and the firefighters and paramedics can get to and from their crews. That's what they're designed to do. Like I said, they're the most visible part of the police department. And in between, respond to calls of service. They drive around the neighborhoods. They look for traffic violations, do speeding enforcements. And like I said, they're the main generation for us, going out there and really being active out in the community. COVID has shifted our focus on different types of crimes, calls of service, and it's caused some numbers to rise and others to drop. For example, motor vehicle stops and tickets had dropped because we were looking for basically most egregious offenses. We have started going back increasing with the traffic increase and going back and doing more and more traffic stops. Arrests were down because we were trying to summons people in. Early on, the officers got exposed to COVID and had COVID. We could directly relate to prisoners that were in the cell block, and it's booking prisoners. So we really tried to avoid arresting people and summoning in. We have seen a sharp increase in traffic accidents compared to 2020, and we think that's a direct increase of people coming on the road. And so we're going to be a lot more active with traffic enforcement again. And the statistics I'm going to put out are just an example, and they're only up till last night at midnight, and they're compared against 2 previous full years. We still have almost a full month to go with stats. For example, so the green would have been 2019, the red is 2020, and blue is 2021. So right now, still a month to go. Calls for service will surpass last year's. And log entries made by dispatch is going to surpass last year. So we're starting to see an increase in calls of service and log entries. Mental health related calls. In 2019, we had 406. Last year, 2020, we had 667. We're at 525 as of midnight last night. So the numbers are still up there, even though they've dropped. Larcenies are about the same as last year. You will notice that fraud was extremely high last year. We got, people probably know, I'm sure some of you are victims of it, with the unemployment that came out, there's a lot of people filing falsely for unemployment. And that's why those numbers are so high last year, since there's been a drop in a lot more investigations and better ways of doing paperwork. We've seen a dramatic drop off in that. Welfare persons checks have come down a little bit, but again, we're only 8 away from what we were all of last year, and we still have a full month to go. So those numbers, some numbers are staying pretty even. Domestic disturbances, we're down slightly from last year, which is great. I'd love to see even lower numbers, but those are calls we get sent to. Those aren't anything we can really impact too much. But calls of domestic assistance are up significantly. Domestic assistance is people seeking help for a family member regarding a restraining order, something to do with the divorce, possibly custody issues, or somebody seeking information on how to maybe, if somebody's having alcohol abuse or something like that, we log in as a domestic assistance. 51 days filed for child sexual abuse are down, which is great, and violations of restraining orders are down, which is great to see too. Unwanted guests for some reason are up. Threats are starting to rise up, and harassing phone calls and emails are on a sharp rise, but suspicious person and suspicious motor vehicle calls are significantly down. Arrests, like we said before, they're down because of the fact that we were trying to summons more people and we weren't doing as many traffic stops. Protective custodies for alcohol and drugs, that's when somebody's too intoxicated to take care of themselves, we bring them in and release them into a medical facility or hold them in a cell or to a sober adult, are starting to rise again. And motor vehicle crashes are steadily on the rise as more and more traffic goes out. And suicide attempts and threats are already on pace for this year, but we still have the holidays coming up. That's where we actually see a dramatic rise on domestic abuse, domestic disturbances, and a lot of people threatening suicide or making attempts of suicide. So these numbers will be, if they keep the trending, will be significantly higher. The Detectives Division has 8 officers. There's a lieutenant detective, 5 detectives, 2 school resource officers, and 3 civilians comprising the running coalition. They do all the follow-ups for sexual assaults, B&Es, larcenies, any death investigations, and anything to do follow-up with cyber crimes, work with different groups, different organizations. We have 2 detectives that are responsible for evidence control, and 1 detective registers, looks and monitors all level 1, level 2 sex offenders, and they do major applications for license renewals. So when you see, like when the select board is voting on extending lists of liquor licenses, the Detectives Division actually follows up on those. And our school resource officers are part of the STARS program from NEMLEC, which is the School Threat Assessment Response Team. Both SROs are on 2 different teams for that. But if there's an issue in a surrounding school or something going on, they do go out and assist with the other schools. And they also work with the prescription roundup program. So this year they've conducted 104 investigations compared to 82 last year. So the detectives' investigation numbers are starting to rise. Public records requests. So in 2019, we had 1,153 public records requests, all of 2019. Last year, we had 936. As of December 1st of this year, we have received 1,766 public records requests. So this is a clerk that does this, takes in one of my administrative assistants, takes in all the information, gathers what's needed, preps everything, any exemptions are out there, puts out there, makes the exemptions, and then everything gets reviewed by the lieutenant detective. So he's reviewing on average 1,700 public records requests. And they can either be a quick thing, just a simple report, or they can be very involved, requesting 911 recordings, radio transmissions, multiple reports, multiple paperwork. We have to accomplish it within 10 days. If we can't get it done within 10 days, then we have to notify the person why we can't and give them a reasonable expectation when it's going to be fixed. Support services,
Chief, can I
there's
ask
5 officers.
Chief, can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question? Sorry, before you
Yeah.
move on.
From
Is there, the public records requests, are they distinct from the ones going through town hall? Or do they all go to town hall first and then get directed to your area as required?
Some go to town hall, some come directly through us, through the website. Others, people come into the police station, fill out the paperwork and are requesting it. So I say an overall majority get filled out right by us through our records access officer. Not all go to town hall. If they do, Laura sends them off to us, if it's the police department. But sometimes most of ours are actually people walking into the station and requesting the copy of the report.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So support services has the support service lieutenant. We have the civil rights officer now falling under there, Sergeant Silva. We have the traffic and safety officer, an armorer and fleet maintenance officer, our community service officer, and 3 civilians who function with the police. One's the police and fire administrative assistant. One is a domestic violence advocate. This is grant funded. This person is not under the police department budget at all, the town budget. It's a grant through Respond Incorporated, but they do work out of the police station and assist us with domestic violence follow-up. And then we're asking, like I said, we have the parking enforcement officer, and then our support service lieutenant does oversee the regional control, animal control officer. Dave's person oversees the majority of our social media and also is our accreditation officer and does recruit training and covers all department training. Our armor and fleet officer is responsible for the department vehicles, working with the DPW, scheduling service, purchasing new cruises, and also does our license to carries. So license to carries of firearms, in 2019, we completed 349 requests. In 2020, we had 427. As of December 1st of this year, we've processed 453 license to carry applications. Like I said, we still have a month to go with this. It takes about 3 hours on average worth of work to start a simple background. It's no issues. If there's issues or something we need to rise up, then there could be a lot more investigative work there. Traffic and safety officer, a lot of responsibilities, including being in charge of the crossing guards, and takes all traffic complaints, assigns traffic, maintains the radar units, and assigns out, takes any issues or concerns from anything safety-wise from the public, and then assigns the officers to do radar enforcement of stop signs where it needs to be done in that area, and then keeps all that data. The community service officer is a main community liaison. Since COVID, her role has shifted to become even more vital. She does follow up on domestic violence incidents, meets regularly with elder services, the coalition, and the CSO and the coalition make up a crisis intervention team. They do meet with Joel Apollo from the fire department and Elder Human Services and anybody else from town that they need to on a regular basis, and the clinician will be joining this and helping out with follow-up. So that's the police department budget. Before I go into dispatch, does anybody have any specific questions about the police department portion of things?
I had one, Chief. I was just wondering what, I saw that in the summary of patrol that patrol is responsible for the majority of arrests, summonses, and hearings. I know what arrests and summonses are. What do you mean by hearings in the context of patrol?
Actually, that's a great question, Ann. I'm sorry, I probably should explain that better. So a hearing is when what we did is we were investigating an incident, and there's enough probable cause to believe that the person committed a crime, but not enough to arrest or summons. So we request a hearing, and it goes in front of a clerk magistrate as an independent person to look at the evidence to see if there's enough to move forward. It's basically an independent review. And to see if there's enough to move forward to then either charge the person or not charge the person. If they decided not to move forward, it doesn't show up in the person's criminal history, whereas a summons with a arraign or arrest would, if that makes sense.
So this is a clerk magistrate hearing?
Yeah, clerk magistrate, yep, through moving court, and it's basically it's another set of eyes, and we just want another person to look at what we have and say, hey, do you think we have enough to move forward with these charges?
Thank you. That clarifies.
Karen, I can't see the room. Is everybody else good in the room there for questions or anything?
I think so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to dispatch. Dispatch is funded at $704,000. It's a 4.05% increase. It's because we have a lot of newer dispatchers that a lot of are on steps, and that's what the increase in has to do with contractual standards. The wages themselves are up 4.21, but the overall budget is only up 4.05. Dispatchers budgeted for 10 civilian dispatchers or telecommunicators and 1 civilian head dispatcher, who does work several shifts per week as a dispatcher and oversees the administration of the dispatch center. We currently have 1 open position. One of our dispatchers left to become a school teacher and left us, so we just recently have that, and we have that posted. Hope to fill that soon. So the police, the cruisers, the patrol division, the most visible part of the police department, these are what we call the invisible people. You don't see them a lot because they're in the station, they can't leave their area, but when you call 911, they're the ones that answer the phone, and they do police and fire, and also emergency medical dispatch, and handle all 911 calls. We do get an additional $50,000 in 911 grants to offset existing salaries, but this grant is not guaranteed and can be discontinued at any time. But we've been fortunate; we've gotten this $50,000 every single year. This job has become significantly more complex with new technology and emergency medical dispatch requirements. And dispatchers have become key in court cases. They're getting called to court far more than they ever did in my 27 years on the job now. We used to never see dispatchers called to court.
Wow.
Now they get called regularly because they actually set the probable cause for us for a lot of calls of service and whether we can enter or arrest somebody. So their training for them has really increased, and we're really trying to keep up with the new changes. For expenses for them, I'm only asking for a 1.32% increase. I'm asking for a little bit more training money. There's a lot more training for dispatch out there, and I'm just asking for a little bit more overtime and training expenses to be able to send them to more classes. And we've been sending them to a significant amount of classes learning to deal with mental health related calls and get us the information we need, so when us or the fire department are responding to a call, we have as much information as possible going in there. And then there's just some small increases in like software licensing to match increases in cost of software. They have a lot of different programs in there, emergency medical dispatch, 911, different systems inside dispatch. So very minimal increases we're looking for. So does anybody have any specific questions about dispatch before I move on to the coalition?
Okay, none here in the select board room.
Ian, you're good, I can't see you.
Yes, I'm good, thanks, Chief.
Okay. So the last thing was coalition. At town meeting, not been so generous and gave us the mental health clinician. This would be a lot longer to talk about because this is what I was planning on talking about. But they've again agreed to give us that mental health position, which I'm thrilled about. So the budget increase is only 1.65 for that compared to last year. It's wages, and we're asking for a 0% increase in expenses. We do have that position posted, and I'm hoping after the first of the year, we'll have that person filled it in the position. And the goal of this person, again, will be under the supervision of the director of the Reading Coalition of Prevention and Support. And that's Erica McNamara, you all know. And they will assist with the implementation of the coalition's goals, objectives, and activities. They will work with the Reading Police, the Reading Fire Department, the Reading Health Department, the coalition, and any other various town departments that need it, and to help with whatever there is. Even though it's falling under public safety and the police department, this is a full-time person we're going to use, but primarily follow-up for us in the fire department. The commission will be able to provide requested assistance, follow-up on cases, work, cultivate relationships and partnerships, and collaborate with agencies to best serve community members. This position is charged with assisting individuals in assessing resources for treatment, peer support, and self-help. The coalition will work out of the Reading Police Department in concert with coalition personnel. In conclusion, providing the community with the highest level of police service is the goal of this department. To achieve this goal, we need to work with and for our community. The members of this department will continue to work hard and show our dedication and unwavering commitment to accomplish this mission. And that's all I have for my presentation.
Great, thank you. I don't see any questions here in the select board room. Anne?
Oh, I was curious what the additional day of training is focused on for officers, you know, to go from the 32 to the 40 hours.
Deputy, do you know specifically what they added to, like what the specific training was?
Well, the way it works is every year the MPTC, the Municipal Police Training Council, they decide which topics we have to train on, so it changes yearly. So we can provide that list, I can get the hours, but it changes every year on whatever the trend in policing is or, you know, such. So they did add a lot of use of force training this year.
Right.
The MPTC has gone forward, they're trying to put together a use of force policy for everybody that would be a standard guideline. So that is one added, but every year it's going to change depending on what topics they want us to focus on.
Do you think it'll be 5 days going forward, or do you think it's 5 days because of the new changes? But
it's looking like 5 days from now on.
Yeah.
But again, they didn't even really tell us. It just said, here's what we got to train on this year. And we go to Lowell Police Academy for our in-service. So whatever they tell us their schedule is what we go by.
Okay.
Yeah, Ian, we didn't get actually a heads up. The schedule came out and said, by the way, you're going 5 days now.
Yeah.
And the schedule comes out, about mid-August, and our in-service starts in September. So it's hard for us to pre-plan with everybody here.
And does Reading sometimes serve as serve to host trainings, or is that not related to the MPTC training? Is that?
The MPTC has its Reading Police Academy that is not anything to do with the Reading Police Department. This year, the MPTC actually chose to stay remote learning, but some private academies like Lowell, which we chose to go to because we feel we learn more in person, they do it 5 days. So the Reading Police Academy, which will actually be moving to Linfield, Boston Sports Club, they're doing it as Zoom this year, but yes, they do provide it as well.
Okay.
Again, this is mandatory in-service training we have to have. This doesn't replace any of the trainings we still seek on any extra training like dealing with mental illness or use of force. This is our mandatory in-service we need to keep certified as a police sergeant.
Sure, absolutely. I know I appreciate that and certainly recognize the need for the additional funding so you can, accomplish that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna escape out. Hopefully I don't blow up Zoom when I do that. Am I out?
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Very good, thank you very much. Very
Thank you.
helpful.
All yours today. Would you like me to use the presentation or do you want to do it?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. I'll share the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, members of the board, the town manager, and the general public. I would like to thank you all for the warm welcome. It's been a great experience so far, and I'm delighted to be here. My name is Ade Salaries. I'm the public health director for the town of Reading, and I'm here to present the health department's proposed level 1 budget for FY23. As you all know, we now have a new independent public health department under the public safety umbrella. This is a brilliant idea, and I think it will help strengthen the linkage between public health and public safety. Key responsibilities. The health department is responsible for leading public health activities related to disease outbreaks and surveillance, administering vaccinations, managing establishment permitting and inspections, managing compliance checks and inspections related to tobacco control and animal control, tracking and responding to public health complaints, collaborating with federal, state, and local agencies to coordinate public health responses. Our mission at the health department is to protect and promote the health and well-being of Reading citizens. In FY23, we will be moving into the empty space at the police station. As you can see on the slide, the space is a little tight. It is approximately 550 square feet, and it is intended to be occupied by the health department staff as well as the staff of the Coalition for Prevention and Support. In total, we're going to have at least nine staff members in this space. At full occupancy, there is little to no space left to store our file cabinets that contain the health department's records. It is critical that we have access to our records when we move to this new location. We conduct multiple reviews and receive multiple inquiries that require us to make references to our records and sort through them on a regular basis. Our proposed solution to this potential problem is to leave the cabinets behind and move our records with us to this new location. I know you're wondering, how in the world are we going to do that, right? Well, it is pretty simple. By digitizing our records, we're making them easily accessible from any mobile device without having to store them in file cabinets. Digitizing the health department records is in line with our recent transition to online permitting software. Once the records are digitized, we will no longer need to open a single file cabinet to go through paper records, especially when we conduct application reviews or respond to public records requests. All we have to do is type in the address and click on search. That's it. We get all the information we need. Sounds good? Yes, it does sound good, but it comes with a price tag, which I will discuss on future slides. Also, can you go back to the previous slide? Also, move to the new location will not give us the luxury of having administrative help from the Public Services Department and the Town Manager's Office. An admin assistant's role is critical to the success of a department. They provide administrative support to staff and visitors to ensure efficient operations within the department. Our solution to this problem is to request additional funding to recruit an experienced admin staff. Next slide, please. So this slide pretty much puts things in perspective. It summarizes what we're asking for. To the left of the screen is the current staffing level. To the right is the proposed staffing level. We are proposing to increase our staffing level from 3.64 full-time employees to 4.64 full-time employees by requesting additional funding for an administrative staff. We are also requesting funding for a contract archivist. Next slide, please. Here's the budget summary. By requesting funding for a full-time admin staff and contract archivist, we're looking at a budget increase of $61,209, which is equivalent to a 15.7% increase from FY22's budget. Now, this increase can be broken down into salaries and expenses. Next slide, please. This is the proposed salaries budget. $31,209 out of the $61,209 we're asking for goes towards salary adjustments for the current staff. So we're talking about COLA, merit pay, overtime. It also goes towards salary requests for the proposed admin staff. In total, this amounts to a 10% increase from FY22's salaries budget. Next slide, please. This is the proposed expense budget. The remaining $30,000 goes towards funding for a contract archivist and potential integration. This amount represents a 36.8% increase in FY22's expense budget. I believe this is going to be a one-time funding request, and I anticipate that we will be going back to baseline funding during the next budget cycle. Next slide, please. So assuming the baseline budget is level funded, the additional net dollars we're asking for can be summarized as follows. We're asking for $19,133 for the proposed full-time admin staff, $13,076 for salary adjustments, COLA, overtime, merit pay, $29,000 for digitization and integration, and that amounts to a total of $61,209. Next slide. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. No, that seems great. Oh, Chris?
Thanks, Karen. And welcome to Reading a Day. It's our pleasure to have you here. I guess my one question would be, when it comes to the digitization and then hiring another employee or whatever, couldn't the new employee just do the digitizing and just save us the 30 grand for that? Or is it just that person wouldn't be able to accomplish what a contractor would? Like, are we talking a contractor would do, they'd bring in like 6 people and do hundreds and thousands of records, or like what's the difference?
It's not just the latter. The contractor can come in and get everything done within one budget cycle and just get it done. I mean, the other approach, it may be feasible, but admin staff have, they play a critical role, and they have duties they're supposed to fulfill They answer phone calls, greet visitors, schedule appointments, and maintain calendars, coordinate staff meetings, prepare memos, emails, invoices, and things like that. So I think that would be a heavy task on the admin staff, and that can drag for a long time. And from my understanding, they tried to do it prior to me joining the town, and it wasn't successful using admin staff to digitize the records.
And do you know how many records there are? I mean, is it hundreds of thousands or tons?
We have 12 file cabinets filled with public health records and data.
Chris, I can give you a little background, also before your time, several years ago. All of Gene's department looks like the health division or department does now, 10 years ago. And we used both methods. We used the clerical staff, and they were great, working overtime, often on Fridays because town hall was closed. But as Ade suggested, it took years to get through the building records, for instance. Different places in town hall, different departments have used the different approaches, and clearly the most efficient and the quickest is to outsource. It's actually a place in Reading that'll probably be able to do the work. And specifically where Ade does face some sort of a deadline, a positive deadline to move, quick is clearly better in this instance. So we have done both ways. There's advantages, there's disadvantages. For the additional cost, speed is well worth it. And I just mentioned in passing to Ade, I really don't want to wait till July for this. I can find them probably $10,000 right away from the town manager's reserve fund, and we'll scratch around for some other funding. I'd like to get going on this immediately.
Yeah, well, that definitely explains it for me. Just that's why I was wondering how many there were and if it's a one-off. So yeah, 30 grand to just not have. I don't even. You might not even get me to be able to move 12 filing cabinets for 30 grand. So it sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The salary for the administrator kind of jumped out at me. It looked like the kind of salary that would be a part, from my sort of general understanding of salary ranges. It seemed like a part-time salary, but so it's $19,000 for a full-time person to work throughout the year.
No. So actually, it's from our calculation, it's 49,133. But that was why I mentioned that if we level fund the baseline budget, so pretty much we can move the funding from the interim director, which is 30,000, move it to the next fiscal year, and then add the 19,133 addition to it, and that will give us a full-time position for.
I'm encouraged here that I'm encouraged that that's not what we'd be paying our administrator. That's good to hear. Thanks.
Hi, Ade. This is Mary Ann Downing, and welcome to Reading. I really like your presentation. It's the easiest to follow presentation I've ever seen on a budget. I mean, it tells me what I need to know. I know it's a small department, but it's still helpful. One question, just generally, I had about the 12 filing cabinets of records. How far back in time do they go? Because I guess I'm wondering if they're going back, 50, 60 years. I guess for curiosity's sake, it's maybe interesting to digitize, health records from the early 70s. But I would probably imagine mostly the last 5-10 years are of most interest if it's for addresses, and I could be completely wrong. I mean, some of them may be for businesses that no longer exist.
Correct. And I share the same concern as you. So the way it works is we will go through the files, and we can get permission from the state to destroy materials that we no longer need. But
sure.
Somebody has to sort through the materials, and that's what the archivist does. and that's why we're proposing to get funding for the ag highways.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions on my end. Thank you so much for the presentation today, and again, welcome to Reading.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aday. I don't think we have any other questions here, but happy holidays. We'll be seeing you around.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Joe Huggins. Joe, do you want me to do the presentation, or would you like to do it?
If you would do it, Bob, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I just mean share the screen. I'm not going to actually do it.
Oh, geez.
Is that okay?
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. We had to present the FY23 Level 1 budget to you all. Next slide, Bob. Just do a quick agenda. We're going to go over the requested core facilities budget, the requested town facilities budget, and then the combination of the town core and the town facilities budget. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our work order status by location from 21 to 22. And just so everybody knows, I'm not sure, I've probably said this a number of times, but the facilities department has 3 separate budgets. One being the core facilities budget, which I'm going to go over, which is consists of the maintenance and repair costs for all of the 17 locations within the town of Reading, including staff of 4 maintenance people, 3 office staff, and all our accommodated costs are rolled up into that budget. The town facilities budget consists of 4 full-time employees, custodial staff, as well as a budget for cleaning of all the town buildings, as well as the chemicals that we use to clean the buildings. And then on the school side, we manage the 19 school custodians, which rolls up under the school facilities, school budget. I won't be going over that tonight, but that's just important to mention that is part of what facilities does. Thanks, Bobby. We can move forward. So for the core facilities budget, which is made up of what I just mentioned to you folks, we're asking for a 3.71% increase. This includes, mandatory steps and COLA for the union folks, as well as the non-union employees in the office. Okay, well, this next slide right here is the request for the expense side. Accommodated costs are going up, which is our utilities, which is water, natural gas, and electricity, going up 3.18%. It's important to mention that I think it was 4 months ago, Bob, we renegotiated our natural gas carrier and got a very good price going forward for the next 3 years. And as everybody knows, that is a volatile market right now, so that's really good news for our energy budget. Maintenance repairs for the school and town buildings is going up 2.26%. Electrical expenses, 3.49%. You're going to see some of these numbers are going up a little bit higher. Alarm expenses is for fire alarm, because the state mandated inspections has gone up quite a bit. 6.4%, which is mandatory through the state of Massachusetts. Pest management also, we see a spike there, 7.37% increase. And that's because we've added some more buildings onto the pest management program for the town of Reading. And overall, we're looking at a total increase for core wages and expenses of 3.12% overall. The town facilities budget, again, like I mentioned, is made up of the 4 full-time custodians, as well as outside cleaning is going up 2.06%. The steps in COLA is at 2.85, and that number might stick out at you folks. And the reason is we had a stipend that sunsetted at the end of the last contract, so that's why that number's a little bit lower there. The outsourced cleaning services, we're estimating around a 7.85% increase. We are right now getting competitive pricing. We're hoping to do better on that number. But, you know, minimum wage has gone up quite a bit, as well as cleaning chemicals, anything petroleum-based that is sunk into that number has also gone up. So overall, that's a 4.41% increase. And then if you combine the two, between the core facilities budget and the town, it's a 3.24%, which equates out to 114,561 increase in the overall budgets. We always do this every year, just to show folks where we're tracking on work orders by location. FY20, we were at 2,806 work orders, and this year we're at 2,933. FY21, I should say. So every year that number goes up, and it ebbs and flows between work at individual buildings. No real rhyme or reason in some cases, but the work does change overall where the guys are going. This particular slide right here is just showing a comparison between outsourced and in-house work. And like the year before, 73% of our work is completed by our in-house staff. So where we're light on numbers of people, because of a number of trades that facilities has working, elevator, fire alarm, controls, boilers, a lot of that is outsourced through competitive bidding, and that's done every year. And we have 3-year contracts with yearly renewals, and most of our service contracts have been bid out, so right now we're in a pretty good place, and the increases aren't as great. That's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions for us.
No. I don't see here any of the select board from Joe. Ann?
Okay.
I think I don't have any questions at this time. I appreciate the presentation, Joe.
Thank you.
And thanks again for all your assistance with the energy reduction plan last night. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Karen, if I might just make a few comments.
Sure.
Next Tuesday, the board meets again to finish off the town departments. You'll see Amy Lannon from the Public Library, Jean Delios, Public Services, and Jane Kinsella will wrap it up with DPW as well as the enterprise funds. And then I'll cover some shared costs, and I'm going to give a budget summary at the end. I think it's important that the board, hears directly from department heads what they need before you understand the big picture and what we can afford.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm certainly going to bring that home next week so you understand kind of where this all is relative to the funding we have. And I'll ask the board some questions and request that, in the early, just January budget meeting, we can continue that discussion before the budget process has to continue. So, in case it's not clear, from all the departments that you have heard from and will hear from, we can't possibly do everything that's being asked. And that's true every year. And that's true with the school department when they start out their budget as well. But I think it's really important that you hear from everyone directly before you understand the magnitude of kind of what's going on. But especially for perhaps FinCom members, you'll get that next week.
All right, sounds good.
That wraps up the night.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Do you have to adjourn first? Does it matter? Doesn't
I
matter,
don't think
right?
it matters.
Okay.
We're in your room, you go first.
Oh, okay, so sweet. I would.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so no discussion. So Anne, how shall you vote?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And Karen, yes. So select board is adjourned. Thank you all. That's great.
Thank you all.